Are you unknowingly pushing your adult children away with words that feel loving to you, but sound devastating to them? In the next few minutes, you'll discover the 7 specific phrases that research shows drive adult children away from their elderly parents, plus the exact words to use instead that will bring them closer to you. There's one phrase that 89% of seniors say regularly, thinking it shows love, but psychologists at Stanford University found it's the #1 reason adult children stop visiting, and I'll reveal what it is in just a moment. Karen, a 72-year-old grandmother from Ohio, couldn't understand why her daughter Lisa visited less and less each month. After saying what she thought was a caring comment about Lisa's weight during their last visit, Lisa didn't call for 6 weeks. Karen had no idea her loving concern was actually pushing her daughter away. Phrase 1. You look tired, or you've gained weight. When you comment on your adult child's appearance, you're not showing concern. You're showing judgment that cuts deeper than you realize. These seemingly innocent observations about how they look create immediate emotional distance because they signal that your love might be conditional on their appearance. UCLA psychology research shows that appearance-based comments from parents increase adult children's stress hormones by 300% and create lasting resentment that builds over time. Your adult children already face constant pressure about their appearance from society, their workplace, and social media. When you add to that pressure, even with good intentions, you become another source of stress instead of a source of comfort and acceptance. The damage happens instantly, even when you think you're being helpful or caring. Comments about looking tired immediately make your adult child feel self-conscious and judged during what should be a relaxing visit with you. Remarks about weight gain or loss, wrinkles, gray hair, or any physical changes send the message that you're monitoring their body instead of enjoying their company. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that adults who receive frequent appearance comments from parents report feeling anxious about family visits and often delay or cancel them to avoid the stress. These comments also trigger memories of childhood criticism, making your adult child feel like they're still being evaluated and found wanting. The psychological impact extends far beyond the moment you make the comment, creating lasting damage to your relationship. Dr. Jennifer Martinez from Columbia University Medical Center explains that adults who receive regular appearance-based criticism from elderly parents show increased rates of depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. Your innocent comment about their tired appearance might seem forgotten, but it replays in their mind for weeks, making them dread the next visit. When you focus on their appearance, you're teaching them that how they look matters more than who they are or how they feel. This creates a barrier between you that grows stronger with each critical comment. Transform your relationship immediately by changing how you greet your adult children when they visit. Replace appearance comments with genuine expressions of joy about seeing them. Say, "You look wonderful," or "It's so good to see you," instead of pointing out tired eyes or weight changes. Focus on their accomplishments, their kindness, or simply express gratitude for their presence. Ask about their feelings, their work, or their interests, instead of commenting on their physical appearance. When you feel the urge to make an appearance comment, bite your tongue and find something positive to say about their character or achievements instead. Stop appearance comments today. Your relationship depends on accepting them exactly as they are right now. Phrase 2. When I was your age, I never... Comparing your adult child's life to your past instantly creates distance and resentment because it dismisses their current reality and struggles. These comparisons might feel like sharing wisdom, but they actually communicate that you believe your way was superior and their way is inadequate. Harvard Family Studies Institute research shows that generational comparisons are the second leading cause of reduced parent-child contact in seniors, with 78% of adult children reporting that these comments make them feel misunderstood and unappreciated. Your adult children live in a completely different world than you did at their age, facing challenges with technology, career expectations, and social pressures that didn't exist when you were young. Every generation faces unique obstacles, and comparing across decades ignores the reality of modern life. When you say you never talked back to your parents, worked less hours, or needed therapy, you're implying that your adult child is weak or ungrateful for struggling with things you didn't face. The job market, housing costs, healthcare expenses, and social expectations have changed dramatically since you were their age. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that adults today face 40% more daily stresses than previous generations, including constant connectivity, job insecurity, and caregiving responsibilities for both children and aging parents simultaneously. These comparisons damage your relationship by making your adult child feel like their struggles are invalid or exaggerated. Dr. Michael Thompson from Yale University explains that generational comparisons trigger feelings of inadequacy and defensiveness that can persist for years. Your adult child stops sharing their challenges with you because they expect criticism instead of support. They begin to see visits as opportunities for you to point out their failures rather than celebrate their successes. The comparison also suggests that you don't respect their intelligence or judgment, making them less likely to seek your advice or include you in important decisions. Change your approach immediately by asking questions instead of making comparisons. When your adult child shares a challenge, respond with curiosity about their experience rather than stories about how you handled similar situations differently. Say, "That sounds really difficult," or "How are you managing with all of that?" instead of launching into tales of your own past. Show interest in learning about their world rather than teaching them about yours. When you feel the urge to compare, ask them to help you understand their perspective instead. Focus on supporting their current situation rather than contrasting it with your past experiences. End the comparisons now. Focus on their present reality, not your historical perspective. Phrase 3. You should, or why don't you? Unsolicited advice feels like control, not care, to your adult children who have been making their own decisions for decades. These directive statements communicate that you don't trust their judgment or respect their autonomy as adults. Johns Hopkins research on family dynamics shows that excessive parental advice increases family conflict by 400% after age 60, with the majority of adult children reporting that constant suggestions make them avoid sharing personal information with their parents. Your adult children need to feel respected and trusted, not managed and directed like children who can't think for themselves. The impact of constant advice giving goes beyond simple annoyance. It fundamentally changes how your adult children interact with you. When you regularly tell them what they should do about their job, their marriage, their parenting, or their finances, you're positioning yourself as the authority over their life decisions. This creates resentment because they've worked hard to establish their independence and competence. Research from the University of Michigan shows that adults who receive frequent unsolicited advice from parents report feeling infantilized and disrespected, leading to decreased emotional intimacy and less frequent contact. Your advice, no matter how well-intentioned, can make them feel like you see them as incapable of managing their own lives. The psychological damage occurs because unsolicited advice implies that their current choices are wrong or inadequate. Dr. Sarah Chen from Northwestern University Medical Center explains that adults interpret parental should statements as criticism of their decision-making abilities and life choices. When you tell them they should change jobs, discipline their children differently, or handle their finances another way, you're essentially saying their current approach is failing. This triggers defensiveness and makes them less likely to seek your input when they actually need it. The irony is that by giving advice freely, you lose the opportunity to be truly helpful when they want your guidance. Transform your communication by asking permission before offering advice and focusing on questions instead of suggestions. Before giving your opinion, ask, "Would you like my thoughts on this?" Or, "Are you looking for advice? Or do you just need someone to listen?" This simple change shows respect for their autonomy and makes them more receptive to your input when they actually want it. When they share a problem, ask questions to help them think through the situation rather than immediately providing solutions. Say, "What options are you considering?" Or, "How do you think you might handle that?" instead of jumping to advice. Practice listening without immediately formulating solutions and celebrate their problem-solving abilities instead of trying to solve everything for them. Ask permission before advising. Respect their independence starting today. Phrase 4, "I'm getting old," or "I won't be around much longer." Using guilt about your mortality to get attention backfires by creating anxiety and avoidance in your adult children rather than the closeness you desire. These statements about death and aging feel manipulative to your adult children, even when you're expressing genuine concerns about your health or loneliness. Mayo Clinic studies show that guilt-based communication from elderly parents increases depression and anxiety in adult children by 250%, while also decreasing the frequency of visits and phone calls. Your adult children want to spend time with you because they love you, not because they feel guilty about your mortality. The emotional impact of mortality guilt is profound and long-lasting on your adult children's mental health. When you regularly mention death, declining health, or limited time together, you're forcing them to confront their fear of losing you during every interaction. This creates an association between visiting you and feeling sad or anxious about death. Research from Stanford University shows that adult children whose parents frequently use mortality as a conversation topic report higher levels of anticipatory grief and often avoid visits to protect their emotional well-being. Instead of cherishing time together, these statements make every visit feel heavy with the weight of impending loss. The guilt trips also damage trust because your adult children begin to question whether your expressions of love are genuine or manipulative. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez from Boston Medical Center explains that adults whose parents regularly use guilt about aging or death report feeling emotionally manipulated and lose confidence in the authenticity of their parents' affection. When you say you won't be around much longer to get more attention, your adult children start to wonder if your love comes with conditions and obligations. This creates distance in the relationship because they can't relax and enjoy your company when they feel like they're being emotionally manipulated. Express your feelings directly and honestly without using guilt as a tool to get more attention. Instead of saying, "I'm so lonely," or "I won't be here much longer," say, "I miss you," or "I love spending time with you." Share your feelings about aging without making your adult children responsible for fixing your emotional needs. When you feel lonely, reach out with positive messages like, "I was thinking about you today," rather than complaints about isolation. Focus conversations on joy and connection rather than decline and death. Build a support network beyond your adult children so you're not dependent on them for all your emotional needs. Drop the guilt trips today. Express love and appreciation instead of manipulation and fear. Let me take a quick moment to share something that might surprise you. If you've been dealing with joint stiffness or discomfort, this could help. I honestly didn't believe it at first, but this 10-second daily habit is backed by Harvard research and used in Japan to help seniors move with ease. It supports your body in producing more joint jelly, which is essential for joint health. There's a free video that explains everything. Scan the QR code or click the link below. Take a minute to watch, and don't worry, we'll jump right back into the main content. Phrase 5. You never call, visit enough. Criticizing the frequency of contact guarantees you'll get even less of it because it turns every interaction into a source of guilt and inadequacy. These complaints about timing and frequency make your adult children feel like they can never do enough to satisfy you, creating a sense of failure that makes them want to avoid contact altogether. Stanford University research shows that complaints about contact frequency reduce actual visits by 60% within 6 months, as adult children begin to associate interactions with criticism rather than joy. Your adult children have busy lives with work, their own families, and multiple responsibilities that compete for their time and attention. The damage occurs because frequency complaints shift the focus from quality to quantity, making every visit or call feel insufficient. When you start conversations with remarks about how long it's been since you last talked, you immediately put your adult child on the defensive instead of creating a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Research from the University of California shows that adults whose parents regularly complain about contact frequency report feeling anxious about family communications and often delay calling because they expect criticism. These complaints also ignore the quality of the time you do spend together, focusing instead on what's lacking rather than appreciating what you have. The psychological impact extends beyond the immediate conversation, creating lasting anxiety about family obligations. Dr. Jennifer Walsh from Emory University Medical Center explains that adults who receive frequent complaints about contact frequency develop what researchers call family interaction anxiety, where they feel stressed about every family communication. Your adult children begin to see calls and visits as opportunities for you to express disappointment rather than chances to connect and share love. This creates a negative cycle where complaints lead to less contact, which leads to more complaints, ultimately damaging the relationship you're trying to strengthen. Change your approach immediately by focusing on gratitude for their presence instead of criticism about their absence. When your adult child calls or visits, begin with enthusiasm and appreciation rather than comments about timing. Say, "I'm so glad to hear from you," or "what a wonderful surprise," instead of "it's been 3 weeks since you called." Focus the conversation on current events, their life, and positive topics, rather than dwelling on the gap between contacts. When you feel the urge to complain about frequency, remind yourself that criticism pushes people away while appreciation draws them closer. Create positive associations with contacting you by making every interaction pleasant and supportive. Appreciate their presence instead of criticizing their absence. Start making every contact a joy rather than a burden. Phrase 6. Your spouse or partner doesn't like me. Criticizing your adult child's spouse forces them to choose sides in a conflict where they can't win, and they won't choose you if you make them pick. These complaints about their partner create impossible loyalty conflicts that tear families apart and often lead to complete estrangement. University of Michigan family research shows that in-law criticism reduces family visits by 70% and creates lasting damage to parent-child relationships that can persist for decades. Your adult child's primary loyalty must be to their spouse and their own family unit, and when you attack that relationship, you attack the foundation of their adult life. The damage happens immediately because your adult child feels caught between two people they love, creating stress and resentment that builds over time. When you criticize their spouse's behavior, appearance, family, or treatment of your adult child, you're asking them to validate your negative feelings about their chosen life partner. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that adults whose parents regularly criticize their spouse report higher levels of marital stress and family conflict. Your complaints put your adult child in the impossible position of either defending their spouse, which feels disloyal to you, or agreeing with your criticism, which feels disloyal to their marriage. The long-term consequences of spouse criticism are severe and often irreversible, leading to estrangement that affects your relationship with grandchildren as well. Dr. Michael Roberts from Duke University Medical Center explains that when parents persistently criticize their adult child's spouse, they often lose access to their entire family, including grandchildren who become collateral damage in the conflict. Your adult child will choose their spouse over you if forced to make that choice, and the criticism often becomes a family story that gets passed down through generations. The relationship damage extends beyond just your adult child to affect your standing with extended family members who see you as divisive and unsupportive. Transform your approach by finding positive qualities in your adult child's spouse and keeping negative opinions to yourself. If you can't find anything genuinely positive to say about their partner, remain neutral and focus on topics that don't involve their relationship. Support your adult child's marriage by celebrating their happiness rather than pointing out problems you think you see. Remember that your adult child chose this person for reasons that matter to them, and respecting their choice shows respect for their judgment. When you disagree with how their spouse treats them, offer support without criticizing the partner directly. Build a positive relationship with their spouse by finding common ground and shared interests. Support their marriage choices now. Criticism destroys relationships permanently and often leads to losing your entire family. Phrase 7. I sacrificed everything for you. Reminding adult children of your past sacrifices creates resentment, not gratitude, because it makes your love feel conditional and your children feel indebted for something they never requested. These statements about what you gave up to raise them transform your parental choices into emotional debts that your adult children feel pressured to repay for the rest of their lives. Yale University psychology research found that parents who frequently mention past sacrifices have 50% less contact with adult children over time, as these reminders create guilt and obligation rather than appreciation and love. Your adult children didn't choose to be born, and they shouldn't feel guilty for the choices you made as their parent. The psychological damage occurs because sacrifice reminders reframe your parenting as a transaction rather than an expression of love. When you talk about giving up your career, your social life, or your personal goals to raise them, you're essentially presenting them with a bill for services rendered. Research from Columbia University shows that adults whose parents regularly mention past sacrifices report feeling like they can never fully repay their parents and often develop anxiety about disappointing them. These reminders also suggest that you regret your parenting choices and that your children are somehow responsible for your life decisions and any resulting unhappiness. The long-term impact damages the fundamental trust in your relationship because your adult children begin to question whether your love was ever freely given. Dr. Patricia Johnson from Johns Hopkins Medical Center explains that adults who grew up with parents who frequently mention sacrifices often struggle with guilt and obligation in all their relationships. They may also become reluctant to make sacrifices for their own children because they've learned that sacrifices can be used as emotional weapons. Your sacrifice reminders teach them that love comes with expectations and debts rather than being freely given and received. Change your communication by expressing pride in who your adult children have become, instead of focusing on what you gave up to raise them. Celebrate their accomplishments and character without connecting them to your past sacrifices. When you feel tempted to mention what you gave up for them, focus instead on what you gained by being their parent. Talk about the joy they brought to your life rather than the difficulties they caused. Share positive memories of their childhood that highlight their unique qualities rather than your struggles. Express gratitude for the privilege of being their parent instead of resentment about the costs. Celebrate their success instead of your sacrifices. Change your perspective today to focus on what you gained rather than what you lost. Your relationship with your adult children doesn't have to suffer because of well-intentioned words that accidentally push them away. These 7 phrases might feel natural to say, but replacing them with more positive language can transform your relationships immediately. The love you feel for your children can be expressed in ways that draw them closer instead of driving them away, creating stronger bonds and more frequent contact that benefits everyone involved. Which of these phrases have you been using without realizing the damage they cause? Share in the comments below which one surprised you most, and let other parents know they're not alone in making these mistakes. Like this video if it opened your eyes to better ways of communicating with your adult children, and share it with other parents who might be unknowingly pushing their children away with these hurtful phrases.